Veterans Day to you all. This is the Week 10 Fantasy Football Start Sit Show. Alongside the coach, Kevin Schroeder, I am Henry John. It was a chaotic Week 9 in the NFL. Hopefully, fantasy football didn't kill you too bad. I know a lot of sports bettors got crushed this past week. A lot of survivor pools got mauled, diminished in size drastically. But hey, fantasy football rolls on. There were a few surprises, but there were some superstars getting the job done for you last week too. I know Coach and I discussed a number of players last week. I think we got some of those predictions right, and some of them maybe didn't quite pan out like we hoped. But hey, it is what it is. We can't bat 1,000 on here. Coach, how are you doing today? And I also want to say thank you to all the veterans, all the military service men and women out there for your service, because without you, we wouldn't be here doing this fine program. And, freedom isn't free. So I think it's important that we remember that today and always. But not to steal the spotlight from you, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, doing great. I agree 100%. Definitely Veterans Day. Thank you to anyone who's active or has served. We appreciate all that you've done for our country. So I'm doing great. Last week, I managed to win in all my pay leagues. For what that's worth, that was anytime I can do that, I'm pretty happy. So it was a pretty solid week. I know that I had to go into that Thursday night game last week with Mike White and Ty Johnson there, and I thought Mike White started off the game looking great, and then he got hurt there. So as we talked about earlier, Josh Johnson might have been the better play, but can't. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess. So.
Yeah, who would have thought Josh Johnson anywhere, right? But yeah, it was a wild week of football, and it should be another wild one here in Week 10. It's a fun slate on tap. Been breaking those games down, writing previews and stuff all week long. Coach also has been at work, and he has got his start-sit fantasy football columns for running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks up over at florysports.org. You can find those in the fantasy football section. They are available along with all of the other fantasy football content that's gone up ahead of Week 10. Tons of great stuff in there. As always, be sure you check that out. The link is right in the show description for you to head on over to the website. So we can jump in here and start. I guess we could start with running backs again. We flipped the script last week and went receivers first, but we'll start with running backs, or will we? Because we've already got a question here, Coach. Andrew in the chat. Hello, Andrew. He is wondering about restarting one of Rashad Bateman, who plays tonight with the Ravens against the Dolphins. Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers. They are playing the Rams on Monday Night Football. So we got Thursday, Monday's range there. And then we got Myles Gaskin, the lone running back here in this scenario. I'm assuming a flex scenario. In that case, with the Dolphins also playing tonight, of course, against Baltimore. So we're starting one. It is a PPR league. We are throwing you on the hot seat right out of the gates, Coach. Do you have a lean?
I'm just looking into this a little bit here. So we got Gaskin and Bateman going tonight here, and Ayuk going on Sunday. Sunday or Monday, I forget when the 49ers are playing here.
Ayuk is Monday night.
Monday, yeah. So we got the Monday nighter. Boy, let's see. My initial gut instinct on this is Myles Gaskin.
Okay.
His workload has kind of ebbed and flowed, but typically he has been pretty solid for PPR. over the last 4 weeks, he's had 6, 4, 4, and 6 targets for PPR. And that's with Bateman, I've really liked what he's done thus far in his 3 games. A little concerned with Sammy Watkins coming back tonight, how that affects that passing game, although the Ravens are passing a lot more than they have. But just because of the fact that there's a lot of mouths to feed there, I think Bateman's probably third. So then looking at Ayuk and Gaskin. And Ayuk's kind of come on the last couple weeks here as well. But I think Gaskin is the play for me out of those 3.
I would lean in the same direction there for you, Andrew. I think when in doubt, when it's kind of you're looking at flex range guys, and these are all quality flexes, right? Like I think you can make the case for Bateman and Ayuk, both they're solid wide receiver 3s with what we've seen here the past few weeks, both really hitting their stride, a couple of young receivers there. And Myles Gaskin, any given week, as long as he gets to work, he has RB2 upside. He has been getting more of that work lately. Let me just pull up his snap percentage from last week. 72% of the snaps Gaskin played in the win over the Texans. That was the most he has played in any game all season for the Dolphins. So that is promising. It's definitely the lead back there, it looks like, over Salvin Ahmed. I would go Gaskin as well. Of the other 2, I think Bateman's definitely the sit. Coach mentioned Sammy Watkins coming back, and while the Ravens are throwing the ball more, and I would even argue that their passing game is stronger than their run game at this point. Just looking at what they have in the backfield this year with all the injuries to Dobbins and whatnot there, and these new weapons that Lamar Jackson has acquired and his improved arm. I firmly believe that they have a lot of upside there in the passing game. I don't want anything to do with Bateman. How is Sammy Watkins going to impact that role? Bateman, even though he has been getting targets and he looks the part here for a rookie, hasn't played more than 66% of the snaps in any of his 3 games. Watkins is obviously going to cut into that a little more, and you've got Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews there. And Brandon Ayuk's coming on, so he'd be the other guy I would put up against Gaskin there, but I think I would lean the running back here when in doubt. Do we have official word on Tua Tagovailoa yet? That's my next.
Looks like Tua is he's dressing tonight, but he's only going to be active in case of emergency.
Okay.
So it's kind
same
of a
situation as last week.
Break glass in case of emergency type setting.
Yeah. Okay. The Ravens quietly against running backs this season. Let's see here. Giving up the 9th most fantasy points, Coach, in PPR, over 26 per game to running backs. So maybe Gaskin can do a little something there. I think the tight ends, it's going to be a tight end heavy approach. I expect Brissett to target Gasicki early and often. I even did a NFL DFS column on Underdog Fantasy for Flurry Sports. So just another example of all the fantasy football content we got over on the site for you. But that went up today, and I even had Durham Smythe to go over 9.5 receiving yards, just because you can do that in one reception, and the Ravens are god-awful against tight ends. So I think they have a good game. I think Waddle has a good game. But after that, who are you throwing the ball to right now in this offense? I mean, Mac Hollins? I don't think so. So consistently, that is. With Devontae Parker out, you need targets here, and I could see Gaskin having a real role in check down passing situations, in addition to what he's able to do on the ground against the Ravens run defense that they're still decent, but it's not what we are used to.
Yeah, for sure. I think Gaskin, the only concern we've had with him is that occasionally he gets has game scripts or he just disappears, and that's the only issue. It looks like the last 3 he's been pretty relevant throughout. So, I'm not going to say there's not risk there, because there certainly is. But I think of the 3, I tend to usually lean running back as well, just because of the amount of touches. And when he's getting a similar ballpark number of targets. Ayuk had 8 targets. Bateman's had 6 and 8 the last few weeks, but you're getting a running back who's getting 4 to 6 targets. I think you lean the running back in that situation too.
Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe the Dolphins' 10 different offensive coordinators have finally realized Gaskin's the best running back they have down there. Also, I think it helped that Malcolm Brown wound up on IR. And so that cut a 3 RB backfield down to 2. And I mean, it's kind of back to what we saw last year, right? Gaskin's the lead guy when he's there, and Achman comes in to relieve him, and it kind of is the backup, if Gaskin goes down. So good stuff there. Hopefully we helped you, Andrew. Good luck with that decision, but I think we're both in agreement on starting Gaskin there. So bringing it full circle, we started that question off with receivers. We ended with a running back as the choice. Let's dive into Coach's running backs article from this week. I try with the segues, what can I say? We are looking at starting James Conner this week, Coach has in the column against the Carolina Panthers, who, Coach, it drives me nuts that all of these fantasy sites now, they put red or green with the matchup. Sleeper does it, Yahoo does it. I think even ESPN does it now too. Green matchup being it's a good one. It's a team that gives up a lot of fantasy points to the position. Red being it's a bad one. The Carolina Panthers don't give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing running backs on the season. I think they're ranked, I want to say still in the top 5. Maybe not so after last week's game against New England. So they look good there, and it looks like a difficult matchup. However, when you shift over to adjusted defensive efficiency on the season, the Panthers are 19th against the run, and they're actually 4th against the pass. So the pass defense is what is keeping them in the top 10 in DVOA rankings on the season. This is not that good of a run defense. Let's put it bluntly here. You look at some of the caliber of their opponents. I mean, even go back as recently 2 weeks ago as Mike Davis for the Falcons. He's not doing anything, which, by the way, you can drop Mike Davis now. It's sad to say. I love the quads, but it's just not happening. Coach, why do you like James Conner other than for maybe some of those reasons that I just said there with the DVOA? I don't know if you dive into that when you're doing the columns at all, but there are other reasons here, I think, for sure.
Yeah, for me, volume is king, right? You get a running back who, with Chase Edmonds going down, James Conner is the 1A here. Now, Benjamin will probably get a little bit more run here again this week. But James Conner's been on an absolute tear, 6 touchdowns in his last 3 games. He's been, that's even with Chase Edmonds there. And now he's going to be the offense again this week. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins are both questionable. I didn't see if they practiced today, but Conner is going to be he's an RB1 until Chase Edmonds comes back. He's just going to be solid. He's going to get you a very good shot at a touchdown each week. And then if he's getting all of the looks or the usage that he's getting here, where last week he had 21 carries and 5 receptions, 26 touches. I mean, that's RB1 volume there. If you can get a running back who gets 26 touches, that's an absolute slam dunk to start.
100% agree with you. I mean, James Conner's been Mr. Touchdown on the year. He leads the league in touchdowns. Is he going to continue at that pace? Probably not. Is he going to score 40 fantasy points a week like he did last week? Definitely not. But with Chase Edmonds going down, there is an increased opportunity here. You talked about Benjamin. What would you put him at? Do you think this is kind of a split similar to what we saw with Conner and Edmonds? I mean, obviously you're thinking a lot of volume here for James Conner. How do you see him factoring in to this game plan? Because I think Zach, Trevor, and I talked about this on the Tuesday show, I know. And I think as a consensus, we were all higher on Benjamin than a lot of analysts have been throughout the week. So I'm just curious to see where you fall on that. And you might be higher than other analysts and lower than us even because a lot of analysts are, I think, a lot lower than we were.
Yeah. So I think Benjamin's a flex worthy play. I think you're going to get you can get flex value out of him this week. So I would say he's right in that range of I'm just pulling up the rankings here to see. RB 30-ish is kind of where I'm thinking, right in that area. I see it being kind of a 70-30-ish type of split. And yeah, just looking here at what I've got. So for this week, I've got Benjamin at 36.
Okay.
And I've got James Conner up at 11. So is that kind of
we had him? What's that?
Is that kind of the range that you were talking about with him, or?
It's close, yeah. I think we were kind of poking around RB 30 as well. So when you said RB 30, I was like, oh, we're kind of in spot on agreement here. After Edmonds went down last week, and obviously Benjamin kind of got thrust into it too, given that it was a mid-game injury there. He did play 24% of the snaps after that last week. 9 carries, 39 yards, scored a touchdown. I mean, obviously not most of the games are probably not going to go like last week's did, but again, you got a Panthers defense that, in terms of fantasy points given up to running backs versus how good of a run defense they actually are when you adjust it out, it's night and day here, really. So I think both backs do have value here, and I kind of agree with you. I think Benjamin is actually a viable flex play this week. Looks like Fantasy Pros ECR has him at RB 40 in PPR leagues. So that's a 10 spot difference, I think, for me, at least personally, to that. Now I know you have them a little lower, but you're still higher. So
Yep.
Just because Jace Edmonds goes down, I guess the way I would put it here is don't overvalue James Conner off of this. We need to see it in action here. Now the Benjamin has a week to practice, ready to operate in that change of pace back role as a not starter, but you get what I mean, right? And then also don't undervalue Benjamin. I think those are two mistakes that a lot of people might make this week. I think both of them, though, have starter value. And I agree with you on Conner for sure. He gets an upgrade here after this injury, no doubt. Coach, you also have, this is an interesting one to me, Devin Singletary with the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets. It's not interesting because I have a Jets hat on. That's definitely not it. It's actually more interesting because Devin Singletary is a guy who I feel like has only been a sit in the column throughout the season. Here he is, a start. After that performance the Bills had last week when we found out that the superior Josh Allen in the NFL plays in Duval County, now we're starting Devin Singletary. You got to talk to me about this one.
Well, this one is strictly with Zach Moss being out. With Zach Moss out, Devin Singletary is going to be the 1B back to Josh Allen there, and the matchup. The matchup is, when I broke down the fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, the Jets are actually giving up 39 fantasy points a game to opposing running backs, and that's just under 10 more than the next team. So when I saw that, I'm like, Devin Singletary, it's a guy that I guess loved to hate over the last year and 2/3 I've been doing these start sits here. But I just when I saw that, I think he's a great DFS play. He's dirt cheap on DraftKings. I think he's 4,700 on DraftKings. As long as Zach Moss is out, I think he's pretty well set for at least 15 to 18 touches this week, and that's he'll get your RB2 value with that.
Yeah, the Jets defense has been absolutely awful against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed this season. Jets defense cannot stay healthy. Marcus May is on IR, so it's not pretty. Curious to see if they can get some pass rush and kind of do some things the Jaguars did last week against that suspect Buffalo offensive line. But I think Devin Singletary also he can catch passes. So even if Josh Allen is being pressured and he wants to dump it off in a screen, I think you're looking at a solid day there. Update on Zach Moss: he was limited in practice today, non-contact jersey. Appears to be making strides towards potentially being able to play this week. So if Moss is able to clear concussion protocol, that's the injury, and return, how do we feel about Singletary at that point? Does he still carry, I know you just said RB2 if Moss is out, does he still carry borderline RB3? Is he a flex play for you? What would be your call there? So we got a lot of questions coming up. I'm assuming the chat is delayed again. So I apologize, but we will jump on these in just a second.
Yeah. As far as Singletary, if Moss plays, I think he's a flex. I still think he's a flex against the Jets' run defense. But I would say he's kind of down in the Eno Benjamin territory is kind of where I'd put him. I think that'd be
just what I was going to ask you. Would you rather start Eno Benjamin or Devin Singletary if Zach Moss plays?
That's a good question. I would probably lean Singletary of the two. Now, and that's because I think the pie is larger for the Bills with Kyler Murray and DeAndre. Now, assuming Kyler Murray and Hopkins play, then I think it's a legitimate coin flip. But if one or both misses, I think I prefer Singletary then.
Okay. All right. Hey, Colt McCoy completed what? All of 3 passes last week? Don't hate on Colt McCoy. It's a joke. Kyler Murray's a little bit better than Colt McCoy. All right, let's get to these chats here. Wyatt Soretta, hello, is wondering, Coach, about starting Michael Carter, of course, with my Jets, Jets, against the Bills defense that is still nasty while the offense is struggling, or Daryl Williams. Daryl Williams is with the Kansas City Chiefs. They have a matchup on Sunday Night Football against the Las Vegas Raiders. My initial thing that I'm going to look up here is the status of Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's due back soon. Let's see if I can't get an update on that.
Yeah, that's the biggie there.
So he looked great, according to Eric Bieniemy. That is a quote, looked great. During Wednesday's practice, did not have an official injury designation because he remains on IR. It looks like, though, if you're taking Bieniemy at his word, we could see Clyde Edwards-Helaire back this week. And at that point, I think that renders Daryl Williams, I don't want to say useless, because I think Daryl Williams has done enough to kind of stay involved there, but the Chiefs' offense is also struggling. So I don't know. If CH is back, you got to go Michael Carter, though. And I know it's an ugly matchup, but, Mike White's back under center. Who knows? Magic's happened before.
Yeah, so, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out, I lean Daryl Williams just because the matchup is very, very rough for Michael Carter this week. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes, I think Michael Carter is for sure the play. The only thing I will say about Michael Carter is that he got 14 targets in week 8 and 9 in week 7. He only had 2 last week when Mike White got hurt early, and Josh Johnson didn't involve him in the passing game as much. But if Mike White stays healthy, the Bills' pass defense is incredible. Michael Carter will have that PPR value too, where even if the Jets, who are 13.5-point dogs, hate to say this, but even if they get behind, I think Michael Carter does have a role. So I think my lean is Daryl Williams, but just make sure you're watching the injury updates on CEH.
Yeah, if CEH is out, it's definitely Daryl Williams. But if he's back in, I think that's where you get to the point where, okay, Mike White's back. Mike White has involved both running backs in the passing game when he came in mid-game against New England, and then obviously the following week against Cincinnati. And it started out sort of that way again before he got hurt last Thursday. So I would have to look at – I would go with Carter, I think, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire does indeed make a return. Good stuff. We got Nicholas Golden. He is wondering, has Devante Freeman earned a flex spot for Week 10? Short answer for me is yes. Of course, the Ravens playing on Thursday Night Football tonight. Latavius Murray is still not back. Baltimore refuses to play Tyson Williams, and when he does play, he doesn't touch the football. And Le'Veon Bell, I mean, I liked Le'Veon Bell until he did his thing with the Jets and sort of have had an issue with him, I think, a little bit ever since. I mean, I still think, he's fine, but he's not the running back he used to be. He's averaging less than 3 yards per carry, and that's an offense, obviously, that knows how to run the football. So Devante Freeman's been taking over the lion's share of snaps at running back. If you need a flex play this week against that Dolphins defense, I don't hate that at all. Do you agree, Coach?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great play for a flex. I even think he's borderline RB2 this week as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And possibly with Latavius Murray out, he is kind of the feature back there, and he's going to cede some work to Lamar Jackson as well. But I like Devante Freeman. I like the play a lot. I've got him in a couple leagues, and I am starting him this evening. So,
yeah, I think you can make the case for RB2 there as well. So if he's your flex option, I wouldn't say you're in a bad spot there at all. Fantasy Pros consensus looks like has him at RB26. That is above Antonio Gibson, who plays Tampa Bay. So the obvious downgrade there. And Naheem Hines just below Damian Harris, who still needs to clear concussion protocol for the Patriots. Tougher matchup against the Browns for them. And Javonte Williams with the Broncos, I could make a case that he's also below J.D. McKissick, which is interesting to me. And Devin Singletary, who if Zach Moss plays, I would prefer Freeman. Obviously, we won't know because one game's Thursday, one game's Sunday. I would prefer Freeman to Singletary. I think they're not to undermine coach's points for starting him, because I think Singletary, this is a week where he can get stuff done. But in terms of workload, in terms of opportunity, if Moss is on the field, I think Freeman is probably going to get a little more of it. And you can disagree with that, Coach. That's fine. But so I could make a case for him being ranked up as high as RB21 based on those consensus rankings.
Yeah, I think Singletary Freeman, that's kind of a good breaking point. I think last week we were kind of finding where we'd start or sit certain guys.
Yeah.
I think they're right there. I mean,
okay.
I probably give the slightest of nods to Singletary.
Okay.
But I think that's pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I would move him any higher than that either. So that's kind of why I stopped at Singletary. But Yeah. So you're looking good there with Freeman as a flex, Nicholas. Thank you for the question. Let's see here. The Chosen Rose. Oh, we got a kicker question. Have we had a kicker question yet this year? Nick Folk or Younghoe Koo? He's nervous about Folk playing the Browns.
So,
all right. What do you got on kickers, Coach?
So, just my strategy on kickers is always to lock in a solid kicker. In auction leagues, I like to nominate them early and get a dollar kicker. Nobody will bid me up, and so I usually end up with a solid kicker. And then as soon as a buy comes along, I'll usually grab a top one and just roll with them. I like to. That's one position that I will set and forget. I do believe current kicking points leader is Nick Folk. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't believe you are mistaken. He's been kicker one multiple weeks.
Yeah.
I am looking at points against here. Hang on.
I guess I don't know.
So to the point here of the Chosen Rose, I forgot who asked the question there for a hot second. It is like I handicap the Browns-Patriots game as a defensive run heavy. Both teams want to run the ball. That's their offensive identity. Now, I think the Patriots are going to be able to get some things done through the air because that Brown secondary is not good. And it would not surprise me if we see one of Mac Jones' better games in terms of productivity this week. I have to cover a bye in a deep 16-team league. So I've been rostering 2 quarterbacks. Mac Jones has been my backup all season, and I don't really, I don't feel the need to go out and try and pick up like a dart throw kind of deal. Like Mike White's available, but do I want Mike White against the Bills defense, or do I want Mac Jones against that Brown secondary? I think I'll stick with steady Mac Jones there and take what I get. So that's kind of how I view that. So I think folks going to have opportunities. The Falcons, I mean, what are we getting out of the Falcons week to week here? Are they going to be able to put drives together against this Dallas defense? What are we getting out of the Cowboys defense week to week? That might be another question to ask after Teddy Bridgewater went off against them last week. Nick Folk is kicker 1 on the year by 5 points over Matt Gay of the Rams. Younghoe Koo has been really disappointing this season, all the way down at kicker 18, and he was drafted as a top 12 kicker in leagues after he was great last year, and I know that because I owned him in a league. So I think you got to go with Folk. I think the Patriots are able to do enough, and even if drives stall, you can argue that's good for kickers. He's been so steady on the season, though. Let's see here. He's hit 3 from over 50, and really when you're looking at kicker points, right? Matt Gay, the Rams scored more touchdowns than New England, put up more points on a per game basis. 28 made PATs, but he's 5 points below him in kicker fantasy points, and has only made 4 fewer field goals from all the yardage distance combined. So you got a 5 point swing there for Nick Folk. So I think Folk's fine. That's where I would go here.
Yeah, I would also go Folk. I guess what are the point spreads on these two? I know when in doubt, usually the tiebreaker is which team's going to win for kickers. Usually that's the biggest predictor of kicker success is
the Patriots. I know are favored by less than a field goal, but it's been moving. So we have got Dallas laying 9.5. Total went from 50.5 on that Falcons Cowboys game up to 54.5. The Patriots line looks like it has settled in at 2.5 today. It opened at 3. It was down to 1.5 and has gotten moved back. And the Patriots have been sharp as a tack for me since before the season began. Like, I may or may not have money on them to win the division, and I'm feeling really great about it after last week. So I think I like them in this matchup. It's hard for me to envision Baker Mayfield solving a Bill Belichick defense that Justin Herbert couldn't solve. And like I say, I think Mac Jones can move the ball in this Brown secondary, and Folk will have opportunities. So.
Yeah, with that said, I would go Folk as well. I tend to try and pick a kicker from a winning team. But just as easily, it's kickers are a crapshoot in that, you can pick a kicker in a great matchup and they'll end up with, 5 for 5 for extra points. And just as easily, those could be 2 or 3 field goals thrown in there. But for me, I would take Folk would be my play as well.
All right. We don't get kicker questions very often on this show, so you may have spent a little too much time on it, but it was kind of fun to do kicker stuff. Good stuff. Good luck to you, the Chosen Rose. Now we got Squid Giant Chode saying hello from Twitch. Sup, Squadron. Happy Veterans Day. Same to you. Thank you to any and all veterans who might be watching live for your service. Coach, he is wondering, he needs a wide receiver for this week. Who does he play between Rashad Bateman and Brandon Ayuk are 2 of them? So we got this debate again. And he's got Marvin Tron, who I can only assume is Marvin Jones. What are we thinking here?
That's a tough call. I actually have a choice between Bateman and Marvin in another league that I'm in. And I'm actually leaning Bateman of the 2. I'm a little concerned about Marvin's lack of targets over the last couple weeks.
Just 3 last week, it looks like.
What's that?
Just 3 last week for him, it looks like.
Yeah, and 5 the week before when he got out-targeted 12-5 by Jamal Agnew. And then
I'm sorry, that was receptions. 5 targets and 8 targets.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, still, to your point, it's been declining.
We mentioned earlier that Watkins is back for Baltimore. So that might take some of the luster off of what Bateman's done, but he's been pretty solid his first 3 games out there. Of these 3, I think my initial reaction before I dig too deep, I'm just going to check where I have these guys. I've got a tough matchup for Ayuk against the Rams, but you're going to have Ramsey probably on Devo. His targets over the last couple of weeks, he's gotten 7 and 8 targets.
Turned those 8 last week into 89 and a score. While you're digging, I'll give my answer because it's pretty. I don't know that it's super close for me. I love Bateman, the player. Love Marvin Tron, going back to those Lions days. But he seems to be falling out of favor. Dan Arnold's had a real role there in Jacksonville. I mean, Dan Arnold's been all over the Flurry Sports airwaves and in the columns as a tight end that needs to be rostered. But for me, it's Ayuk. I like the direction he's trending, not only this past week, but the week prior. Coach mentioned the 7 targets there, double-digit fantasy points back-to-back games. Ever since he sat down and had the talk with, I believe it was Kyle Shanahan. Maybe John Lynch was there too. I don't know. I think it was John Lynch who was talking about that talk that happened between wide receiver and coach. But Ayuk is back on the field. He couldn't even get snaps even after he got back from the injury initially. Past 2 weeks, 88%. And then this past week in the loss to the Cardinals, season high 93% of the offensive snaps Ayuk was on the field. George Kittle's back. But like Coach said, this is a more difficult matchup. Divo Samuel going to be going up against Jalen Ramsey. So how will he respond to that? I think Ayuk's going to step up here. He's going to have a nice game because the Niners might struggle a bit to run the ball. Also, the Niners need to win this game. So, it's desperation time after that embarrassing loss to Colt McCoy last week. So I'm going to roll with Niners more than usual, just kind of with the backs against the wall mentality. And I like Ayuk a lot. I think going forward the rest of the season, he's a wide receiver 3 with decent upside even.
Yeah. I was kind of coming around to that too as I was breaking it down. That was kind of the direction I was headed, was towards Ayuk. There's definitely question marks on all these guys. Bateman, you got Sammy Watkins coming back. He's had pretty solid targets without Watkins being there. Marvin, I'm just concerned about his declining role in that offense. And I do think Ayuk's role is definitely increasing, and I would go Ayuk as well.
Yeah, love Bateman too. So you're not dropping Bateman here by any means. Don't do that. But just with Watkins coming back, I guess there's a chance Baltimore gets out to a big lead and is just running clock in this game tonight as well. So Bateman very well could be, the 4th target in that offense, depending on where they slide Watkins in. And I kind of just need to see a game of that, I think, before, moving forward on that. Let's see here. Kyle Movis. Is he starting Myles Gaskin tonight or hoping that Zach Moss sits out and plays Devin Singletary? So we've already talked about all of these backs a bit. So perhaps you were able to glean some info from the other conversations. We both like Gaskin tonight. We think he's going to have a role there. Dolphins, he's taken over the majority share in the backfield. He's going to be targeted. The Dolphins don't have many receivers. Zach Moss appears to be trending towards playing. Now, Coach still likes Devin Singletary against the Jets a lot, whether Moss plays or not. If Moss sits out, I think Singletary becomes the play here, but I don't know that I'm willing to take that risk based on the latest report that he was limited in practice today and is moving in the right direction. So, Coach, would you go with Gaskin tonight, or are you willing to sit this one out?
I would go Gaskin tonight.
Okay.
I think Gaskin's the play tonight. If Moss is back in practice and moving through the protocol, Singletary slides off. I think they're both comparable as is. I actually give Gaskin a slight nod. So to me, it's a Gaskin of the two.
Awesome. All right, so in agreement there. We got Ray Gamer. Mike Gasicki plays the Ravens tonight. He does, and it is a great matchup for tight ends. Dalton Schultz plays the Falcons, or Dawson Knox, returning from injury, missed last week, playing the Jets. This Bills-Jets matchup is getting way too much coverage on the show for my liking. We need to pick one. It is standard scoring, Coach, so note that. No PPR here.
So between those, I just looking at mouths to feed in the offenses, and it's Casicki and it's Waddle, and the Dolphins. Gaskin out of the backfield. There's not a lot of proven weapons there. I suppose Preston Williams might make his return as a Ford, okay. I suppose. But for that, I think Gasicki is the play there. They're going to have to pass tonight, and I think there's just not as much competition for targets there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know when you sit Gasicki really at all. Like, he's getting peppered week to week. And then we mentioned the matchup earlier. Ravens defense banged up in the secondary, not what they have been in years prior. Over 18 fantasy points allowed to the tight end position, the second most in the NFL among all defenses, only to the Eagles. So this is a great matchup. I told you I even like Durham Smythe to go over his yardage prop of like 9.5. He could do that on a catch. He gets a couple targets a game. So if you're looking to do something with that maybe. But yeah, I don't think I can turn away from Gasicki here in this matchup, even with Tua out. Standard scoring, that hurts the PPR a little bit, but I think the yardage is going to be there, and I could really see Gasicki finding the end zone, I think, tonight too. So, all right. Ray Gamer has another question. More Rashad Bateman tonight against the Dolphins. Brandon Ayuk versus the Rams. Hunter Renfrow versus the Chiefs. Again, it is a standard league here, Coach. Does that change your thinking on the Ayuk Bateman situation? I know we both kind of settled that debate here with a couple other questions. And then where does Hunter Renfrow fall into that mix for you?
Yeah, so I actually, of those three, I think Renfrow is going to see the most targets. In standard, it becomes who's going to score the touchdown. Of the three, in a PPR type setting, it would be Renfrow for me, and just because of the targets and the volume that he's going to get. When you add in the element of having to typically score a touchdown or get some big yardage, I still think Renfro's the play of those three.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go Ayuk. I might have to disagree with you here. I don't know that I just don't trust Renfrow. I think the Chiefs defense has been playing a little better. I think the Chiefs are realizing that in order to win games, and this is being a big game, obviously, the defense has to play better because the offense just is not getting it done. And I don't know that that's going to change this week. I think this game goes under the total. And I just a little worried. Kenyon Drake stepping up. How will Deshaun Jackson fit in? I don't know. But I like what Ayuk's doing here. Maybe it's just a little bias against Renfrow, but I could see the case for both. I think in terms of yardage, though, also the other thing I would point out, the Niners like to get both Deebo and Ayuk in on a few running plays each game. So if Ayuk's able to turn a big run loose in a standard league, that is going to make a world's difference more than PPR. So I'm going to side with him, but knowing how this show tends to go, it'll be Renfrow's the play. So you might want to listen to Coach on that.
Well, and one other thing too, George Kittle, it does look like is going to be back as well. So I just think Renfro's become with Ruggs no longer there. He's the number 2 in that offense as far as when they go to pass. So that's kind of where I'm headed with that. Okay. But I think Renfrow to me is the play. So
right.
A little difference in opinion there. We don't get that too often here, but
yeah, button heads. That probably means trouble for me. We will get to. We've got trade questions in here. I know Coach has to duck out probably in a couple minutes. Coach, we got one more start sit question quick for Thursday night's game involved. If you've got a chance, we are looking at tight ends. Mike Gasicki, of course, we just talked about him with the Dolphins, the great matchup. However, it is the Dolphins, and there's no Tua. Or TJ Hawkinson, of course, with the Lions, and he is playing at the Steelers. Detroit's coming off a bye. I mentioned the Ravens give up all those fantasy points to tight ends. The Steelers give up fewer than 12 per game, right in the middle of the pack, almost splitting the NFL dead even. I don't have the numbers to rank the defenses in front of me, but that's where they sit. And then I can pull up ECR consensus over on Fantasy Pros just to get an idea as well. They have Mike Gesicki at number 7, and they got Hawkinson at number 6. Oh, man. I don't know if I agree with that.
My initial lean was to go Gasicki.
Half PPR too, by the way.
Yeah, I just think
Apologies
Casicki
there.
is going to be heavily involved tonight. I think Jacoby Brissett's kind of looked for him. Hawkinson definitely heavily targeted too. Just looking at their game logs here to see. Boy, that's a close one. I think I'm going to go with the matchup, and I'm going to go ahead.
No, you can finish first. That's fine.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go with the matchup there, and I think I'm going to go with Gasicki. Although that one's really close, and I can't argue off Hawkinson if you feel that's your guy.
Yeah. I think I would go with Gasicki. But why to me does the Lions-Steelers game just feel like it could be Lions all over again? Or, Detroit's defense is awful, but I feel like it's going to be low scoring. And I don't know that if that's good or bad for Hawkinson. If Detroit needs to play catch up, I feel like that might benefit him a little bit. But yeah, that's an interesting call there. I personally, though, I think Gasicki is the way I would roll there. You can't deny the matchup tonight. Coupled with the fact that the Dolphins just do not have receiving weapons right now. It's Jalen Waddle, and then you're looking at Mac Hollins is getting reps on the outside because they have no one else to put there, and he's normally a special teamer. So I like Gasicki. I'll go with him along with you. There are a couple of trade questions here, and I will stick around and answer those. Coach, you have to go, though, correct?
Yes, I have to head out here.
Okay.
But appreciate it's always a good time. Happy Veterans Day again to anyone that's joining us, and good luck this weekend in your matchups. And if you have any questions, you can always hit us up on Twitter as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Where can they follow you?
I got to pull up my Twitter handle. At Schroeder Coach.
Perfect.
So it's I have to head out here, but been a pleasure as always, Henry, and thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. We will talk to you next week, Coach. And again, you can check out all of Coach's Start Sit articles, get all of his full advice across all the positions over on flurrysports.org in the fantasy football section. We got plenty more up there too. We got streamers at all of your positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense as well. And then we've also got the rankings. Bossman Bruner has his rankings up as he does each and every week. He'll be updating those right up to kickoff to help you out with start sit decisions there. And you can, again, reach out to any of us on Twitter. We're all there. Zach, Trevor, Hunter, myself. Any of those questions on Sunday morning, don't hesitate to ask. Going back to the chat here, I am going to look at these trade questions and try to break them down. Wesley Love, I'm looking at yours first here. You're wondering, do I trade Dak Prescott, Jerry Judy, and Devontae Booker for Cordero, Patterson, and Kenyon Drake? And you have Matthew Stafford. Or do I trade Antonio Brown instead of Prescott and get Eckler instead of Patterson? All right. Let's see here. So I definitely like that you're looking to sell a QB, knowing that you got two there. And I would imagine having two quarterbacks and you're looking to sell one, it's not a super flex. So I'm going to be safe to assume that. Jerry Judy's interesting because now that he's come back from the injury, I know some of us have had mixed opinions on him on the Flurry Sports team. I like the direction he's trending. 2 of the 3 games he's played this year, he's had 7 or more targets. One of those was the week 1 game that he left early with the injury. Devontae Booker is meaningless so long as Saquon Barkley is healthy. Of course, that's obviously a big if, but after the Giants bye this week, Barkley, we presume, will be back out there. Booker at that point becomes just a handcuff. If we're looking at Cordero Patterson versus Austin Eckler on the other side of this deal, I've got to go with Eckler. And I know Cordero Patterson's been balling out all season long. Eckler is just, you can rely on that volume week in, week out. I trust the Chargers offense, I think, a bit more than I trust the Falcons offense. Shouldn't say a bit. It's a lot more. They've had a couple of disruptive matchups here the past few weeks that have kind of thrown things off for them. Got back on track last week against the Eagles. Eckler's the RB3 in fantasy on the season. Patterson at RB7. There is a gap of only 11 points between the two in PPR, so that's interesting. But yeah, I would prefer Eckler of those two, even with durability potentially being a concern. Now the question becomes, do we do the trade? Kenyon Drake is on the up and up, so I like that you're targeting him. If you've got Stafford, I think I would prefer to move Prescott compared to Antonio Brown. As long as Antonio Brown's healthy, Tom Brady's clearly looking to get him the ball with regularity. I think this week he's looking like he's going to be out there. He could really pop off, especially with Chris Godwin kind of trending in the other direction, along with Rob Gronkowski. AB's a guy I'm probably looking to keep around in redrafts. I like his outlook the rest of the season. I think it boils down to the rest of your team situation. Honestly, for me, you've got Jerry Judy and you've got Antonio Brown. You've said a couple of receivers that I like their upside going forward this season. So I'm assuming wide receiver is definitely a little bit stronger than running back here. If you can swing this trade and you have depth at receiver, you've obviously got quarterback covered. And you get 2 running backs who, Austin Eckler, obviously, weekly start, had his bye week already. Kenyon Drake also has already had the bye. And Kenyon Drake has very quietly, for me, crept up into weekly flex territory as well. And I don't see that role really going away. I know the snap count hasn't necessarily been there each week, but he's been extremely efficient. And I think that continues. Josh Jacobs a bit injury prone as well. If he goes down, that only means more work for Drake. So at that point, you could even make the case that you're moving a handcuff in Booker with Barkley coming back for another handcuff with a lot more upside because he's used in the offense anyway in Drake. So if you're going to do this trade, if wide receiver is looking good for you as well, and you need help at running back right now, do the Dak, Judy, and Booker for Eckler and Kenyon Drake. That would be the way I would look to go there. Now, if you have more running backs behind the scenes that you didn't mention here, and you're sitting pretty there, it might be worth hanging on to Prescott and Jerry Judy. And I would definitely hang on to Antonio Brown there as well. But I like the deal for Eckler and Drake. So that would be the direction I'd go. I know we took the roundabout way to get there, but finishing up on my own here. So thanks for bearing with me, Wesley. Let's see here. Getting down to some other trade questions. Hello from Twitch. Hey, _YY. Hey, how you doing? You're wondering, should you trade Alvin Kamara for Christian McCaffrey, or is he at too high of a risk for injury? If not him, then who should you target? And you already have Najee Harris. Oh boy. I feel like you would run into a lot of other fantasy analysts who would say the opposite of what I'm about to say here. Um, just knowing kind of how things tend to be. But I would keep Kamara. I would. Michael Thomas, we know, is not coming back for the Saints this year. Now, the Saints did bring in Mark Ingram, kind of cutting into Kamara's load there a little bit. But let's be honest, Alvin Kamara is still the best weapon in this New Orleans offense. Jameis Winston, I know, has gone down. You could argue that maybe that's a positive for Kamara. If a quarterback like Trevor Simeon is not going to be pushing the ball downfield as much, doing more checkdowns there. I'm looking at the Week 10 just Fantasy Pros ECR. And I know this doesn't project for the whole season, but I'm just curious to see how they have these two ranked. McCaffrey's at 3. Kamara's down at 12. I'm also going to check Zach Bruner's rankings over on Flurry Sports. Curious to see what he has for these two. I mean, let's face it, McCaffrey is injury prone. The Panthers' offense is also a disaster right now. I know they signed Cam Newton today. That's a heck of a lot better than what they've been trotting out there in Sam Darnold. I'll tell you that right now. But Cam Newton can run the ball. So, do things change a little bit, the dynamic there between what McCaffrey's doing on the ground? I don't know. Let me pull up Bruner's rankings here. Okay. He has got McCaffrey at 4, Kamara at 6. All right, there we go. The gap is a lot closer. I would hold serve. I really think McCaffrey could get hurt again. I'm more confident in Kamara to stay healthy, and I'm more confident in the Saints offense, I think, just as a whole, even with Winston going down. That's turned into a mess really quickly after the strong start in Carolina. So I'm going to stay pat. Now, if you're in a position, I guess, in the standings where you're looking to mix it up and try something, you could go and make the deal. Taysom will probably start and take carries. I don't know that Taysom Hill is going to start. To be honest with you, I think they're going to roll with Simeon unless that somehow changed. I can. Let's see. Just looking at. Sean Payton did not consider benching Trevor Simeon in last week's loss. Taysom Hill did sub in for him briefly. Simeon re-entered and, of course, led the late game comeback. It's really, you could go either way with this. I guess for me, I like to limit risk where I can, and I know that's not necessarily the best route when it comes to fantasy football. So if I can limit the risk of another McCaffrey injury and side with Kamara and the rest of my team is looking strong, I will do that. I think Kamara, obviously you're talking about two fantasy superstars here. So floor is not really a concern either way for them week to week, but durability, it really is right now for McCaffrey. Where I might consider doing the trade, I don't know the position you're in as far as record going into week 10 and the rest of your team. What might make me change my mind on my personal stance of staying pat is if you need more upside out of your RB1, if that makes sense. Okay, so if you're not getting the production from the rest of your lineup, you're in win now mode, you're in a push to make the playoffs here over the last few weeks of the regular season. I think going with McCaffrey at that point, week to week, you could argue no one has more upside in fantasy football than Christian McCaffrey, just because of what he can do, right? And you got a couple offenses here who are changing their identity, changing quarterbacks. I think both will emerge fine. I trust the Saints more, but it is Christian McCaffrey. He is the guy in fantasy football for a reason. So if you need that type of upside, I think that would be a trade that would be worth taking a look at. If you're in a good position where you don't want to take on the high risk of injury, like you said, and I completely agree with you, it is there. I would hold pat, and I think that's going to be my final ruling on that. I don't see Taysom Hill stealing too many carries. I think he's going to kind of remain a gadget guy. We'll see what Sean Payton comes up with, but when he was quarterback last year, it wasn't pretty. So I think Simeon's the guy there, and I think that means plenty of check down for Kamara. Um, all right, let's see here. Cass and Cecilia just traded DK Metcalf and Nick Chubb, receiving Jonathan Taylor and Jerry Judy. Did you win the trade? Oh, boy. That is a tough one. I like both Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor a whole lot. I mean, who doesn't? Let's see here. We got Chubb, RB14 on the season. Jonathan Taylor is the RB2. Now, Jerry Judy, not going to be a direct comparison to to DK Metcalf just because he missed time. It depends if the Broncos offense is going to figure it out, right? And assuming this is PPR league, I think Judy's going to get plenty of targets, plenty of receptions each week. Metcalf's more your burner guy on the outside. Metcalf is the wide receiver 8 on the season, and he's had to play several of those games without Russell Wilson. Now, Wilson's coming back. I don't want to be Debbie Downer here by any means. I think I like the other side better. But I also I don't hate what you're getting back. I might be a little closer on this than other people, so I don't want to completely discourage you here entirely. I think Judy is a fine player. I don't know if I trust Teddy Bridgewater week to week, and in terms of quarterback play that Judy versus Metcalf have with Russell Wilson coming back, I have to go with Metcalf there. So I'm gonna side with Chubb and Metcalf. I'm sorry to do that to you, but keep at it, and you can see if you do want to make another move after the fact here, depending on how things play out the next few weeks. And I also don't know what the rest of your roster looks like either. So it could be a trade that works out in your favor or sets up another move here if your league has a trade deadline before the deadline. I think the one in both of mine that have a deadline is the 1st of December. So just be mindful of that, but keep at it and see where it goes. Maybe if Jerry Judy goes out and does really well this week, perhaps you could sell him to someone else for a top flight wide receiver who maybe hasn't been performing as well this year. Thinking along with Stephon Diggs, that's a guy who I just traded for today in a league. Only wide receiver 21 on the season in PPR leagues, but I think that's bound to go up, just knowing the talent that Diggs has there. And I would assume the Bills are a little better offensively than we saw last week, but inferior Josh Allen, we'll see. But yeah, so keep at it. Good stuff. Hey, let's see. Should you target someone else or keep Alvin Kamara locked into the playoffs? Okay. Aaron is saying to get rid of Kamara. Why are they saying to get rid of Kamara? Have you gotten any? Am I missing something here? Let's find out. He's questionable, did not practice Thursday. Sprained knee. Okay. Characterized as mild. I tell you, I think part of the reason why people are maybe down on Kamara now is the decrease in snap percentage since the Saints traded for Mark Ingram. Last 2 weeks, 67% of the snaps played, 68%. This is compared to over 80% of snaps played in every game except the week 1 blowout of the Packers. But you got another guy who can play now in there, kind of filling. Mark Ingram's filling the role he used to occupy along with Kamara in that backfield, in the role that was most recently occupied by Latavius Murray in that Saints offense. So it's no surprise what they're doing here. Kamara is still going to be the lead back. Really, it's kind of a brilliant move. They're looking to keep him fresh and prevent injury ahead of the postseason. So I think that's essentially what New Orleans is trying to do here. The snaps are going down. Kamara is still going to, I would imagine, be very efficient with those snaps. If you're locked into the playoffs, I'm trying to think what I would do in that situation. So McCaffrey played 49% of the snaps last week. He'll play more, obviously. If you're willing to trust whatever Carolina's got going at quarterback moving forward. Sam Darnold's on IR, by the way, so he's out a minimum of 3 games. And I think the Panthers still need a bye, and it comes in there, so it's going to be a while before he's back. Obviously, just signed Cam Newton. It's probably going to be P.J. Walker this week. If you're really willing to trust that, I would trade Kamara for McCaffrey. I'll go back on what I said earlier. And here's why. You're locked into the playoffs. You're trading a stud for a stud. You're trading a stud on a team that is now trying to reduce his workload, also appears to be banged up himself. I did not realize Kamara missed practice again today. So that is of note, even though the injury is supposedly mild. And McCaffrey, obviously, when he's healthy, he's the guy in Carolina. So if you're locked into the playoffs, you don't need the production now. However, McCaffrey could wind up being a league winner for you. Let me look at schedules down the stretch here. And this is the other problem with McCaffrey. Kind of a difficult schedule in the fantasy playoffs. Bills round 1 in week 15, Bucks week 16, and the Saints week 17. So that's kind of murderer's row in all honesty. But it's an upgrade short term, and it's an upgrade in terms of presumably volume and snap count now that the Saints have Mark Ingram. The Saints have the Bucks, the Dolphins, the Panthers in the fantasy playoffs. Honestly, go with your gut, because my opinion is obviously different from people. I can make a case for both sides. I've done that here over the past 10 minutes. But if you want to, I guess, if you want to take a shot with McCaffrey, I have no problem with that whatsoever. He could, if he stays healthy, you're getting the best player in fantasy football, most consistent, most reliable on a week-to-week basis. And I don't really think it matters who is under center. And I know those playoff matchups are daunting, but it's Christian McCaffrey. If you aren't willing to take that risk, stay with Kamara. Maybe go out and if Mark Ingram's available on waivers in your league, try and add him. Or try and trade for him, try a smaller piece. Because if Kamara does wind up missing time, Mark Ingram's going to be the guy. The Saints don't really have another running back that they're going to be relying on there. So I could see that case as well. All depends on what you want to do. I'm going to leave the final decision, though, up to you. You should come back, though, on a show next week and let me know what you did, because or if you want to wait, no one's saying you really have to do this move right now either. So if you're locked in to the postseason, like you said, and you want to wait out the Week 10 games, kind of see what happens with both these offenses that are kind of evolving by the week here as we go, with injuries to the quarterback position and whatnot, might not be a bad idea either. So just see what. Curious to hear what you decide, though. Finishing up here, Ray Gamer, you are playing Gasicki. Smart man. You released Bateman. All right. Also smart. Since it's a Thursday night game, I like that. Nobody else is going to touch him. You'll be able to get back in there on waivers for him next week if you so desire. So you can pick up Ayuk or Renfro instead. But if Kamara is out, would you play Mark Ingram versus the Titans for RB2 if Chubb is out, and if you don't end up claiming D'Ernest Johnson? If Kamara is out, yes, I would play Mark Ingram against the Titans. We've been talking about Kamara for a little bit here, and I think he's going to be fine. Obviously, the last discussion was more trades and trying to project long-term. Long-term, I think he has better durability than McCaffrey. So that was an interesting discussion. I'm going to be racking my brain about that trade all night long. Would I do that? I just don't know if I trust the MC. Man. Let me pull up what the Saints have behind these two at the running back position. Now, keep in mind, the Saints went out and traded for Mark Ingram, right? There's a reason they went out to get him in. It's because they have no depth at running back. They have Dwayne Washington on the depth chart, Alex Arma at fullback. I don't even know if Tony Jones Jr. is still a Saint. If he is, he's definitely demoted to the practice squad. Yes. So he would be on the practice squad. Saints have reportedly signed a notable running back. This was 2 days ago. What is this? Josh Adams, former New York Jet. Okay. But yes, play Mark Ingram if Alvin Kamara is out. I like that. Definitely go for D'Ernest Johnson if you can get him. And Nick Chubb is out. You got a handcuff lined up for you there. And it might even be worth hanging on to Johnson the rest of the season too, knowing you have Nick Chubb, just to lock that position down for yourself. Depending on your scenario, I know we're kind of getting into that point in the season where teams who are looking good at the playoffs are looking to pick up and handcuff their top running backs. I know I'm doing that in a few leagues already, trying to get ahead of the trend. So might not be a bad move there at all. But good that you have Mark Ingram, I'm assuming here, based on this comment, you have both he and Kamara already. So you've got that Saints running back position on lock. Good stuff. Hopefully Gasicki does not disappoint you tonight. All right. Wow. That'll do it. I think we've touched on, yes, we got all the chats done and knocked out. Thank you, everyone, so much for the participation. This was a blast. I know Coach had a lot of fun, too, as he had to duck out a little early with some other obligations tonight. But he sent me a message and said that it was a blast and that he appreciates all of you joining in with us. We will be back next week on Thursday, as we always are, with the Flurry Sports Fantasy Football Start Sit. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that little notifications bell so you get notified whenever we go live. We do ad drop shows every Tuesday. They do the ranking show on Wednesday. Zach, Trevor, and Luke are on that one. And you get all the other content we do too. We post some fun videos. I think Lamar Jackson high school highlights were posted to the Flurry Sports YouTube today. So maybe check those out while he's probably going to ball out on Thursday Night Football tonight against the Dolphins down in his home state. So good stuff there. You got we record, my co-host Zach McAdoo and I do Burnt Rubber Racing, NASCAR and Motorsports podcast. We record that live. If you ever want to check that out, they do Lombardi Sweep, Green Bay Packers podcast, all kinds of stuff. Might even be college basketball show coming soon. I've heard that's rumored to be in the works. So if you're into that as well, maybe some hardwood video content for you. And again, check out Coach's Start Sit articles are up there. The theme of this show, of course, being Start Sit, but all of the Week 10 fantasy football articles are locked and loaded. Streamers, rankings, you name it. Hit us up on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at HangTimeHenry if you want to follow me. Personal Twitter is the only one I got going right now, but we'll have Hangtime Sports back up shortly, so you can follow me there pretty soon for all sports stuff as well. Feel free to reach out with any questions you have, though. And again, thank you for tuning in. I will talk to you guys next week. Best of luck in Week 10. And hopefully we can get a little more chaos again. Last week sure was fun. So maybe the Jets pull it off. You never know. All right. Take care, everyone. Enjoy tonight's game. Happy Veterans Day again. Thank you, veterans, for your service. Really appreciate it. And be mindful of it. Let's all try to be mindful of it, not only on Veterans Day, but every day. All right. That'll do it. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.